Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories. At least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Hello, hello, hello. It's July 1st already. We have a whole bunch of personal stories here to share. Some good news. We did have a little bit of influence here in New Jersey politics. So if you recall, a while back, I believe it was May 19th, we had Jennifer Coffey on the show. Head of an environmental group, a very important environmental group in the state of New Jersey. Hold on, I should have had this on here. I'm going to be remiss. Hold on. Let me check this out. Jennifer Coffey and her organization, because I always forget exactly what this is. It is ANJEC. Right? And basically, we had done a show on the state of New Jersey threatening funding for funding for the New Jersey School Conservation, which is what Jennifer Coffey is like the director there. And so New Jersey is in budget battles, like a lot of states are, right? It's the summer, and fiscal year is coming due in September. I'm trying to get this camera right here, get a level. And essentially, there were a whole bunch of programs that were small like that were cut, right, in the proposed budget. So we had her on. We talked about our history together and our history over there at Stokes Forest. Up in that houses New Jersey School Conservation. And as you know, go back and check out the program. It's really good. Their website is anjec.org. And essentially what happened was state of New Jersey decided to restore funding, at least temporarily, here with a little bit of our help. And I tell you what, she has been hitting the trail, so to speak, on the whole thing. Okay, I think that's good on the camera. Hitting the trail for ever since May on this, and no, I'm happy to be a little bit have a little something to do, and I want to thank everybody who might have had an impact there because of our program on that. I mean, it's a yeoman's work. I mean, it's not easy to be doing that level of activism. I know through experience, and we'll be talking about that also. Here when we talk about politics, which will be tomorrow with that. Now, Todd Conklin, who is on our network here, Safety FM network, and the pre-accident investigation on June 20th had a wonderful program talking about models and plans and everything else. And I'm waiting back for permission from him to use some of those things. I want to play that part of that podcast here, and if I get permission, I'll do it. But otherwise, I'll just tell you. When you write a plan, right? Plans are a two-edged sword, right? Because you can follow them or not follow them. And what happens is this: if something happens and you don't follow them, and it comes out you don't follow, oh, you're to blame, you didn't follow the plan. However, when you were successful, were you following the plan? That's the question. The plan is meant to be a conversation piece and to lead the discussion. So why were you so you got this dichotomy where on one hand, you're successful, nothing happens, it's a wonderful thing, you're a wonderful individual, but on the other hand, if something happens, you're an evil person, right? That's number one. Number two, people like to think about safety like it's a machine, like you're dealing with a machine. You're dealing with human beings when you're dealing with safety. And human beings are variable. If you're dealing with a machine, it's real simple. You set up the machine, you do the machine does what it's supposed to. You have a very low error rate. Unless something really from the outside happens, that machine's going to do whatever it needs to do. What do you deal with a human being? You deal with, is the person feeling down that day? Is the person feeling good that day? Is the person late to work? Is the person early to work? Is there a production schedule that you have to meet? Did the guy who wrote the proposal for that production schedule, did he or she allow enough time? Now you're in a rush. Are you missing parts that you need to do the job? Do you have the right tools, the right equipment? Did somebody call out that day? All of this goes into it. So what happens is your system has a lot of variables going into it. It's called a human being. So what's my point here? My point here is that we're not machines, we are people. And you have to have enough capacity and resiliency and robustness in your system so when things go out slightly awry, you're able to recover. If there is a failure, you're able to fail without consequences. It could be physical, it could be other consequences. There's a lot that needs to go into that. So, no, this harkens back to a situation I'm having. Well, I'm not currently having. I have had on these jobs where, the first time I got to deal with behavior-based safety was the early 2000s. I dealt with it then. Before then, the old LPS system, which is still used, and and everything else. And I said, look, if you're out there making all these observations, you're doing all these field audits and everything else, it's no longer a objective type of thing. You just being out there impacts the work. Some might call it managed by walking around. I believe that's what Scott Geller calls it. I could be wrong. Don't yell at me, Scott. Managed by walking around. If you see an unsafe situation, like an imminent hazard, imminent danger, what do? You stop the work. You correct the employee. Or like I say, we have a discussion about trying to get some context. You don't want to come across as you knowing everything when it's a job you may or may not have done. All of this goes in there. Just you out there changes the working environment and no longer are you collecting objective data. You are now in the subjective. You just being out there. Me being out there in my Orange Safety Wars shirt, the big number 76 on it for 1776, is going to impact the work. You're going to impact the worker. So now, before we start saying, well, no, we started a new system here and we are doing good, we haven't had accidents in 3 months. Well, okay, what kind of accidents were you having before? What kind of incidents were you having before? Maybe you corrected things, people are a little bit more conscientious, but now we have to be conscientious all the time in doing that. Maybe we change the system in there. And what happens is, with safety statistics, what I found, you're going to be going nice for a long time. Then all of a sudden, you got a 4 or 5, maybe in a row, near misses, good catches, OSHA recordables, what have you, because that's the way things operate. Just because you put up a system and it works for 2 or 3 months or 1 month, oh, look, blah, 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 it's good. Well, guess what? You're dealing with human beings. The sharp end of the stick. Most accidents are caused by human error of some sort. That doesn't mean we blame the human. That means that's the human condition. Some would call it a theologically original sin. So you got to be very careful when you start, hey, we put in the system, look at how successful we are. That doesn't really mean anything. If you go over years and years and you put in a system and you have the consistent people there, consistent compliance, consistent enforcement, consistently everybody doing everything the same way, getting along, acting as a team, which is more important, and everything else, then compliance is overrated. Don't worry about it. Worry about not getting hurt. Don't worry about compliance. No, worry about not having releases. Don't worry about compliance so much. That's where the human element comes in there with resilience and adaptability. So I know it sounds like I'm rambling, but I'm really not rambling. 1, you're dealing with humans. Number 2, humans are variable. Humans make mistakes. 3, you got to build your system so it's resilient and robust and has capacity. So when there is a failure, there is a problem, there's not a consequence, or you could recover. That's another way of saying you can recover from that. There's something, right? You could adjust, you could do what have you. And the other thing is this: positive behavior. Now, positivity and having a good positive behavior is an extremely potent tool, also an extremely important weapon. And that is why people are always trying to knock it down. So, we're going to head on over to, I redid this board, and I don't think did I put a commercial in here? No, I didn't put a commercial here. That's okay. We got a lot of music here. This is Safety Wars. One of our anthems. Safety professionals, get off your knees. Get out of that trailer. Get out from behind that desk.
By the job site gate, clipboard heavy with a weight of fate. Just sign it, don't slow us down. Don't make waves, don't shut it down. But I've seen the blood on the ground. I've read the names on the reports when they were passed around. A hard hat crack tells the truth, no lie. Somebody rushed, somebody waved it by.
From feature story news in Washington.
Call us a cost, but they never count what a life would have cost. Safety professionals, get off your knees. We weren't hired to beg, we were hired to lead. No more rubber stamps, no silent pleas. This job was built on accountability. Stand up straight, say what you see. Safety professionals, get off your knees.
We're going to head on over to FSN Radio News.
From feature story news in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. U.S. President Donald Trump says that indirect talks with Iran are going well, describing the sessions on Wednesday as very good meetings and saying that Iran's denuclearization is moving along. The technical level discussions, mediated by Qatar and Pakistan, are focused on the release of Tehran's frozen assets and navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are meeting with regional leaders, but are not attending the sessions directly. FSN's Jagruti Dave has more from Washington.
These talks are technical level talks. That's what we understand from the Qataris. So they are talking to mediators, and we understand to lay the groundwork for later talks, more high level talks. That's what the reporting that we are getting and that we understand. And look, I think the fact is there's a clear sense that both sides do not trust each other. They have come at cross purposes before, misrepresenting the nature of discussions, the nature of talks. This is a pattern that we have seen between the US and Iran. So this is, in some sense, nothing unusual.
The European Union has completed the legislative process to implement its trade deal with the United States just days ahead of the 4th of July deadline set by US President Donald Trump. He'd threatened higher tariffs if Brussels failed to act in time. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has welcomed the agreement. FSN's William Denslow reports from Brussels.
She says that this is good news for the transatlantic relationship and transatlantic trade. She says it brings with it more predictability, better choices and better prices as well. We've also had some applause from some European industry lobbies here in Brussels. The spirits lobby, for example, saying it's a positive first step, but they are still subject, European alcohol, European spirits, still subject to a 15% duty going to the US. They say in the next steps they want to see negotiations to try to see that brought down to zero.
President Donald Trump's annual financial disclosure shows he earned more than $2.2 billion last year, with more than $1.4 billion coming from cryptocurrency. He made hundreds of millions of dollars from meme coin sales and a digital token platform co-founded with his sons, even as the value of those assets have plummeted for other investors. The White House says there's no conflict of interest. Two people, a man and a woman, have been arrested after climbing to the top of New York's Empire State Building. They hung a banner from the very top which read, "When the power of love beats the love of power, the world knows peace." The man then appeared to get down on one knee and propose to the woman. Authorities are investigating the incident and charges are pending. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today and tomorrow at a significant shift in American public opinion that is going to have a huge impact politically on both the Republican and Democratic parties potentially for years to come. For the first time since polling began, a majority of American voters now say they have more empathy for Palestinians than they do for Israel. Haaretz columnist Joshua Leifer laid out the numbers in this interview with Foreign Policy magazine.
I mean, this graph is remarkable because you can kind of track actually all of sort of the Netanyahu era's wars onto declines in American support for Israel. You can even see in 2021, that war, there's a dip and it kind of is a slow dip. And then obviously the most precipitous dip actually is not on October 7th itself, but seems to be the summer of 2025, which was when Israel was blocking humanitarian aid from entering the Gaza Strip. And, you know, there were images of kind of starving children that sort of suffused American, I would say, worldwide media. I think what we're seeing is a basic reaction to the reality that Americans received, primarily, I would say, on their phones, but also in the media. The image of Israel that was reflected back to them was one that they didn't like. And I think this is true even for people, or maybe especially for people who weren't necessarily paying that much attention.
Tomorrow, what it all means for the powerful pro-Israeli political lobby in the United States. For them too, life is changing. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, US President Donald Trump says indirect talks with Iran are going well, saying that the meetings had been good. The European Union has completed the legislative process to implement its trade deal with the United States just days ahead of the July 4th deadline. And two people, a man and a woman, have been arrested after climbing to the top of the Empire State Building, where the man appeared to propose to the woman. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
All right. Trying to get back to where we were here. Hate it when things do not work the way that they are supposed to work. All right. So we are back.
You are listening to Safety Wars. Tomorrow's Safety Today.
A lot of news out there, some safety related, some environmental related, some not. Just like I always say, this is a show about what I find interesting. And it's usually safety, but it could be other things. Also, all right, so U.S. to overhaul radiation safety rules. This is from the New York Times today. U.S. to overhaul radiation safety rules to spur nuclear expansion. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission plans to end long-standing guidance that radiation exposure be as low as reasonably achievable. That's ALARA, right? As low as reasonably achievable. That's what we used to call it. This is a story by Brad Plummer today. The NRC on Wednesday proposed overhauling its safety rules for radiation exposure from nuclear power plants, saying that the current regulations are too costly and go beyond what is needed to protect human health. The NRC would keep its existing limits at the maximum amount of radiation that workers and the public can receive each year, but it is proposing to eliminate a principle in place for decades that said nuclear plant operators should keep radiation exposure as low as reasonably achievable. In some cases, that meant regulators could order plants to install additional equipment to drive radiation exposure far below legal limits. The agency said that this often led to additional costs without a measurable safety benefit. So let's see here. Okay, I have a press release from the NRC. And this is today, right? So the proposed rule would establish more risk-informed performance-based framework for radiation by adopting a graded approach to dose management based on risk and operational circumstances, providing licensees greater flexibility to use modern methods for evaluating radiation doses to workers and the public, expanding options for managing occupational radiation exposure, allowing caregivers of patients receiving treatments involving radioactive materials to voluntarily receive higher doses, improving, what could go wrong with that? What could go wrong with that? Right? Right, and improving patient care while maintaining appropriate protections. So, we tried this years ago. This is how safety was managed. Right, and you would hear it back in the 90s when I started. And the companies would go along with it. Well, it's his life. It's my life. It's her life. She makes that decision not to wear safety glasses. She gets blinded, so what? Why do you care? They get a chemical exposure and pass out on the ground. What do you care? That's not them. That's their choice. Now the government is actually going to be proposing something that's going to turn into that. Again, we are dealing with human beings here. We're not dealing with automatons. And then you get it's only a little bit more. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. With this, I understand all these other proposals here. And believe me, I like proposal. That's one of my favorite words. Right? However, it's not my favorite. It may be my favorite word. But anyway, I'll let you think on that one. Allowing caregivers of patients receiving treatments involving radioactive materials to voluntarily receive higher doses. Okay, what happens when... who's going to measure it? How's it going to be measured? Do we have some kind of standard for that? And who's going to enforce it? Who's going to manage that? I don't know. Real bad idea, guys. Real bad idea with that, right? And then we wonder why we have 50,000 people a year dead from workplace occupational exposures to chemicals. Here we have NASA barrels ahead. This is from NBC News. Article by Denise Chow. NASA barrels ahead with moon-based plans, doling out nearly $600 million in new contracts. The announcement is the latest in a stream of funding contracts NASA has awarded private companies in its effort to establish a permanent presence on the moon. Hopefully, the moon landers and rovers will arrive on the lunar surface at a rapid clip over the next few years if NASA can accomplish its ambitious vision. The agency announced Tuesday that it has awarded yet another round of contracts to private space companies for upcoming moon missions, this time for lunar landers to carry science equipment to the moon's surface. I know just because I have my ear to the ground that they awarded huge contracts for construction here recently. The announcement is latest in a stream of similar words as NASA ramps up planned flights to the moon in preparation to build a new moon base there. The collective goal of various missions planned over the next 2 years is to test technology and scope out locations and inform NASA's lunar construction plans. Last month, it announced a set of funding awards totaling $1 billion for the first uncrewed missions in its moon-based program. In all, NASA plans to spend $20 billion on the project over the next few years. The recent updates send a clear message. NASA is all on establishing a permanent presence on the moon, and it intends to do so on a tight timeline, relying on commercial partnerships. So we're going to have a whole bunch of weather stuff here, right? Ocean surface temperatures hit record high as world enters uncharted territory, scientists warn. This is from NBC News again. Article by Chantal de Silva. Temperatures on the ocean surface at a record high in June. European scientists warned Wednesday, fueling fears of more dangerous heat waves this summer and fanning concerns over the escalating global climate crisis. Two separate services under EU's Copernicus Earth Observation Program, the Copernicus Climate Change Service and Copernicus Marine Service, announced they had both independently confirmed the record temperatures. Carlo Buontempo, director of the Copernicus Climate Change Service, warned that the rise in temperatures could mark the beginning of a new phase, quote, end quote. They're talking about El Nino and some of the other things. Here we have heat dome. This is from AccuWeather.com. Heat dome to bring 90 to 100 degree temperatures to 200 million in U.S. from late June to early July. Oh, yeah, we were feeling it today. Oh, yeah. The heat dome is, again, from MSN, is pushing power grids to their limit. We're going to talk about that right now. All right. So, well, let's see here. Okay. So, this is from the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Europe is hot as hell. Why doesn't it want air conditioning? So, July 17th, 1983. My parents, they were into epic trips. Right, where you have an epic trip. So when you were old enough, their whole thing was, let's go on an epic trip. So for my brother Eric, I don't know what they did with my brother Wally or my brother John, but for my brother Eric and I, once we were old enough, there was an opportunity to go to Chicago in 1980. And that was like Eric's epic trip. We took a drive to Chicago, hung out there for like a week on the way there, on the way back. We went to the Museum of Science and Industry, saw this big submarine in there. I believe it's the U-505 from the German submarine. We learned about the family history associated with the sub, being that my great uncle is one of the ones who towed it into Chicago and brought it around the country as a war prize. Okay, great. We learned that. My epic trip was I went with my brother John, who was much older than me, by 10 years, and my parents took us to Europe. This was July 17th, 1983. And at that time, you can look it up. Up to that point, we were starting to hear this whole thing, and they called it the greenhouse effect. They didn't call it climate change. Where this was, record-breaking heat in Europe. And here we have a story here about people in Europe. They're against air conditionings, culturally, right? And how many people die a year in Europe for heat-related deaths? So the population of Europe is 745 million, right? And they had 175,000 annual heat-related deaths, right? In the United States, the official number is 1,300, 2,300, but we only count death certificates, not what can contribute to a death, which is heat. So when you adjust things, the number of countries tell you it's something like 10 to 20,000 estimated people die in the U.S. a year. So if we use that number, let's use the upper limit, 20,000. So 20,000, here, I can share this. I actually generated this. So when you go and you look at the numbers here, that means that in the United States, Europe has almost 9 times the amount of deaths than the United States has for heat-related stuff. So this is the bottom line. Right, 1 to 2,000 are typically recorded as heat deaths in the United States. However, there's 10 to 20,000 estimated, right? And Europe experiences 4 to 8 times per capita heat mortality in the United States. So exact ratio, no, you don't even know. So with that, now what's my point? My point here is this: it's freaking hot over there. In '83, it was the hottest year in over 100 years. Reportedly, it was like 103 degrees, high humidity, and we had a whole bunch of stories over there. Being a 12-year-old, right? What do you see? You see at that time, women, a lot of women did not wear undergarments, and sweaty. It looked, very revealing for a 12-year-old. We'll leave it at that. I got quite an education that summer. The other thing was, my brother and I were at the Holiday Inn in Augsburg, which has since been renamed, I learned. And my cousin Carl from Augsburg had a member of the group, the Wonder Boys. He had a picture of a concert at a balcony. And I said, is that the Holiday Inn in Augsburg, Germany? And he said, well, it used to be. Now it's just a regular hotel or something. I said, okay, I have quite a story for you. So it was unbearably hot. No air conditioning anywhere in Germany. None. Zero. Anywhere we went. And the one or two places we found air conditioning, it was like a museum or a church. Churches are museums over there. So, they had a reason for air conditioning and their climate control. So, anyway, hotter than hell. We're like 30 floors up in the air, and we had this massive balcony, and it's hot. It is hot, 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 hot. So John says, Jimmy, go out, and we're going to take the mattresses, and we're going to sleep out on the balcony. So we took apart the beds. We reassembled them on the balcony, really just the mattresses, the box spring and mattresses were out there, and we finally got some relief from the heat. And it was hot. It's still hot. So it's like, we get up like 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, something like that. Says, hey, Jimmy, yeah. And we had done this like 2 or 3 nights in a row. Says, hey, Jimmy, go down and see where the room service is, because we're going to get in trouble here doing this. So, okay, John. So I go, John, they're right next door. And he says, okay, time to get up. So we get all the mattresses. We put them into the room. We reassemble everything, and we're like, okay, we didn't get caught. Now, we didn't want to have a problem in a foreign country here in West Germany at that time. So my father knocks on the door. Hey, guys, we're headed down to breakfast. Meet us down there. And we're like, okay, we'll be down there in like 10 minutes. So we meet our parents down there. And the looks we were getting from everybody, people looking at us, pointing, the hushed tones and everything else. And my parents like, what did you guys do? What did you guys do? Well, they're all looking at us. So this older couple comes over to us, right? Oh, hold on before I say that. They heard, those big guys are the ones sleeping out on the balcony over there. They hear some of it. Like, what did you guys do? And then about 5 minutes later, this older gentleman comes over. He says, hey, guys, we're coming back to the hotel around 8 o'clock. tonight. Can you meet us in our room? We need you to put the mattresses out on the balcony. Oh, was my father pissed. Oh, how could you do that? Blah, 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 blah. I expected more from you too, and everything else. And we laughed and laughed and laughed, for the rest of their lives over that whole thing. With that. But I tell you what, Europe has an issue. I mean, but okay, they want to have their culture that way. That many people dying, that's fine. I don't want to say it's fine. It's the wrong word. All right, I'll say that now. That's their choice to do that. If they want to live that way. The problem is, does anybody else want to live that way? Where have we gotten? No. I'm going to do the 4th of July show right here, a little bit here. I'll give you a little preview. We got away from Europe for a couple of reasons. One of the big ones was we were being ruled by somebody several thousand miles away. And the whole idea in Europe when the monarchies was, because most of the monarchies were ordained, for lack of a better word, by the Catholic Church, then the Protestant Church, depending on where you were later on after the Reformation, or the Church of England, which now King Charles II is the head of, right? Or was he the third? King Charles III. Anyway, so what it came down to was in these monarchies, went from God to the monarch to the people. Or you were giving peerage, your lords. Went from God, there was a middleman. In the United States, we have a different model. The model is real simple. It goes from God or nature. If you don't believe in God, that's fine. Then natural, right? Something in nature, right, goes to us, and then we form the government, because the government is formed by, of, and for the people, right? That's basically it. Now we've gotten into this thing. Well, we do not believe in air conditioning. Therefore, nobody else should have air conditioning. Right? This is this is the kind of thinking. And we got away from that in this country. And it drives me up a wall. It used to drive me up a wall where we had this return to this. We're going to follow these charismatic people out there. And it doesn't matter whether it is on the right or the left. So you get people on the right. Well, we like President Trump. And then before that, we like President Bush. And before that, we like President Reagan. We like the first President Bush. And then on the left, it was, oh my God, Bill. I have one of my a lot of female friends in the 90s. Oh my God, Bill Clinton, isn't he wonderful? And then it was Barack Obama, isn't he wonderful? And then Al Gore, isn't he wonderful? Even though he wasn't president, he was a leader. And we can't do this following these charismatic leaders. Does leadership matter? Absolutely. Does charisma matter? Yeah, absolutely. Does charm matter? Treating people with respect? Yeah, that matters. Basic sociology, as I was told, 90% of the people are not leaders. And you got to concentrate on the other 10% there. On our leaders. That's what they tell you with safety. Find out who the leaders are in your workforce and influence them. When you influence them, everybody else will come along with them. That's what we're always told. Yeah, okay, great. But when, as a society, we get behind charismatic people or charismatic ideas and attribute more to them than what is deserved, meaning that they're gods, you're going to run into a problem. This is what the issue is here with the air conditioning in Europe. We don't need air conditioning. Why should anybody else? There's a lot of communities in the United States that I'm familiar with. Well, and I couldn't believe some of the quotes when they get interviewed, when there's a problem, especially with the education system. Well, we don't need an education. We're doing fine. Why does anybody else need it? We don't need that. That's optional. We don't need to know about the history of the country. We'll never use that. We don't need to learn algebra. We'll never use algebra. We don't need to, you go down that road and you start cutting back on people's capacity and people's ability to think, you're going to have a problem. And a related story here, and just for complete disclosure here, I did have an interaction with one of the people here that we're talking about, we're going to be talking about, and I'm not surprised that he would make this comment. I'll leave it at that. I'll let you figure out who I'm talking about. People who know me know who it is. So one of the leaders out there, and again, how do we define leadership here on Safety Wars? It is who influences people. An obvious leader, right? Now, so three of the people here were on Star Trek. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson branded a coward by Hollywood stars after refusing to speak out on politics. He had some pretty strong opinions. One of them was, where's the leadership during the last election? Who's the leader? Where's leadership? I felt like he was sort of like putting his toes in the water here to see what kind of reaction. And believe me, that was a valid question in my opinion. Who's the leader here? There's no leadership anywhere? Actors George Takei, Will Wheaton criticized Johnson on Threads. Comedian Matt Rife stepped in on X. Hollywood stars began lashing out at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on Monday after he reiterated his stance to keep his personal politics out of the public eye. After telling Esquire earlier this month that he hates the slinging of modern politics, that's a quote, Star Trek alum, well, first of all, he's a Star Trek alum too. Somebody didn't do their freaking homework here. George Takei, and Stand By Me actor Will Wheaton, who's also a Star Trek alum, took to social media to slam Johnson, with Takei arguing his silence makes him complicit. Oh my. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's recent comments to Esquire about wanting to keep my politics to myself have divided fans, with some calling out his silence, Takei wrote on Threads. He then replied to his post on Monday, writing, "Silence is complicity." Oh, okay. Wheaton also called out Johnson in a Threads post, later deleted. There's a reported by Entertainment Weekly writing, "So disappointing to find out he is such a coward." However, some came to Johnson's defense online, including comedian Matt Rife, who took to X to mock Will Wheaton's coward comment. I love how he's a coward, but I could quite literally do blah, 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 blah through his bleep, bleep, bleep. Rife wrote on Wednesday, adding, the internet comment world is so bold. Now, the biggest problem, different times of the year, times in our history, right? What I've learned through experience is, according to The Rock, is that I need to keep, not want the main thing. And the main thing for me is the thing that in the morning I swing my legs out of bed and run towards is creating. It's art, it's storytelling. I've learned about going to keep my politics to myself. He added that there may be moments in the future where he takes a stand or shares an opinion, but he warned that politics is forever. Politics is omnipresent and it's forever. I don't like it. I hate it all the times. I hate the singing. I hate the bull gluvino that comes with it. Johnson has not been shy about speaking his mind, endorsing former President Joe Biden. In 2020, however, in April 2024, Johnson joined Fox News' volcano sign. He will not be endorsing it. Goes on and on and on. It's from Fox News. So, everybody here, I released a thing on Instagram last October on the No Kings protest. All right. And this is, and it's still, and it reached tens of thousands of people without any promotion. Now, everybody here knows, and there was a comment even made about the Tea Party on in the talking head things, where what's going on in the Democratic Party with the communists and socialists getting in control, Democratic Socialists of America. That is like the Tea Party. Let me explain it to you. The Tea Party was not that organized in 2009. Oh, no. Jimmy, how do you know? How do you know? So I was at CPAC in February, end of February, 2009. There were, no, and of course, no, I was single. This is before I met my wife. And what do? You try to be social, right? Because these are a lot of like-minded people as you. And there are, no, again, you're looking for romance and everything else. So you go into the social scene there. And usually it was like lunch. Lunch was back then social scene there. Now, and then hopefully you get called into an after party, right? And I went to many of them. G. Gordon Liddy was one of them. Niger Innes from the Congress of Racial Equality was another one. And those were the main two, but I went there with, and everything. That was where we got to hang out. No cameras, no nothing. You got to hang out and act like a human being with people you used to see. But anyway, you go in there, and I was known because I had done 9 years of political work at this point. I was a known commodity. Hey, Jimmy, at that time, blah, blah, blah. I'm in there, and they said, hey, Jimmy, we need a hand. I said, well, what do we need a hand for? And it says, we were going to have, and they had a previous one the day before, a couple of days before in Chicago. We were going to have a quote-unquote Tea Party. We were going to have a demonstration down at the White House. I don't even know who this person is. She says, I said, okay, well, I'll be there. That's fine. And again, I go on vacation to these things, and whatever. I'm in a jacket and tie, always. Right, for these political events. Says, okay, Jimmy, well, this is what we need you to do. Do you know anybody with a video camera? I said, actually, I have my video camera right upstairs. I have a little, I think it was 8 millimeter each, 8 millimeter, I think, high 8. I said, yeah, I have that. And she says, well, I said, look, no, batteries are not that good. I said, I video record all these political things and put them up on YouTube. And she's like, oh, really? And this is 2009. She says, what we need you to do is, can you come down there? Just take, small videos, clips, people down there and things like that. And now if you can upload it to YouTube and publicize it, it would be a good thing for us, right? And this way we have a historical record. And I said, well, the other thing is this. You have it on video because, the minute the video camera comes out in them days, the shenanigans stop. Now everybody's looking for views on these things, the smartphones. So we go down there, very, very unorganized. I'll say that, because this was right at literally the beginning. You had a couple of organizers there. I don't even think we had a freaking permit to be there. And we're down there, and we're this and that, and people are getting, they're switching out the bullhorn, blah, blah, blah. And, hey, Jim, you want to say something? You always have. I said, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. Let me concentrate on my job, as I promised you. Okay, very good. And we go through here and everything else. And then it took about a year, 2 years, 3 years to get the ball rolling on that. And to get people used to it. I ran for office several times myself. And to get the ball rolling here. This is where this is different here with the Democratic Socialists of America and what's going on in the Democratic Party now. Love them or hate them, I'm just going here. The Democratic Socialists of America has a very, very long history. My father talked about a lot of the forerunners of this organization because he worked at Western Electric, and there were groups for everything. They were the largest employer in New Jersey. Something like 14,000 people at the time up in Kearney, New Jersey. over by the old Navy Yard, if you want to know the history. Now it's an Amazon. And the Ford plant used to be there, one of the original Ford plants. Anyway, I digress. These people are organized. Highly, highly organized. Lying in wait. They've been endorsing candidates for years. All different kinds of stuff. So, to compare the Tea Party to what's going on with that, no. You can't. And then eventually the Tea Party got co-opted, and that's when I stopped being involved with it. Now let's get back to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson here. I mentioned in last year when in my Instagram post, look, and I mentioned it here, the leaders of the movement do not really care about you. They don't. They want you to get riled up, do things that you wouldn't normally do, get into trouble. They're not the ones, and of course it's always send us money. They're not the ones who are jeopardizing their lives. They're not the ones jeopardizing their career. They're not the ones jeopardizing their children's lives. They're not the ones, their family. They're not doing that. They're sitting, you don't even know who the head of these people are. You get people like, we have George Takei and Will Wheaton, agree or disagree with them. They're what we call one of these. When I mention this, what is this? Keyboard warrior. You also have the microphone warrior. You get the protection of a microphone at an undisclosed Marriott location somewhere on the East Coast. We used to call them also the telephone tough guy, TTG, or the tough telephone talker, TTT. It's very nice that when you have that right now, George Takei is in his 80s. He doesn't give a shit what he says. He doesn't care. What does he care? He's in his 80s. His career got invigorated here with online stuff because, as my wife's cousin, told me the residuals on all this stuff that you did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s are gone. It's a starving art. You didn't save your money. That's it. With Will Wheaton, his story was that he, according to him, I don't know if this is true or not, but according to him, he got screwed when he was on the Star Trek: The Next Generation here. He got screwed because they wouldn't let him become a big movie star, and they prohibited that because he had the quote-unquote golden handcuffs with the contract. I get it. I tell you what you do. You want to be a leader? Don't sit behind the damn keyboard. Go out there and say, instead of saying, no, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson should say something, why don't you go out there and say something? How's that? Get these activists that sit behind the keyboard and a monitor and the cameras, have them go out there and impact things. With me, I get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson here. I get up out of bed every day for the last 7 years. And what do? I'm not special. I get out and I fight that safety war every freaking day. It's a never-ending war. We all fight that safety war if you're a safety professional. The hazards, the attitudes, the human error. Trying to be a leader out there. Sometimes being a shoulder to cry on. That happened recently with a coworker who lost a family member unexpectedly. Trying to inspire people. Trying to train people, to teach people. That's what you got to go out there and do. And when you see these folks criticizing each other in the media, right? criticize. And by the way, you're coming down hard on Will Wheaton. Well, Will Wheaton came down hard on me one time. Let it be known. Because I agreed with him, basically. And, yeah, what's my point? You go out there and do something, right? We had a song here, Safety Professionals, Get Off Your Knees. Well, keyboard commandos. If I have behind that keyboard, go out there and build something. If you have a disagreement with this, no, and I have to say this, Alyssa Milano, I have to give her credit. Yeah, she gives a lot of rhetoric out there, but she goes out there and she actually engages people, from what I can see, explains her position. So this is my position, agree with it or not. That's what you do. You don't go out there with rhetoric. That's like you're in a safety presentation, and you get the gawker out there. No, you get the heckler. So what do you say? I say, okay, great. What's your idea on how to solve this? What's your input? I had one so bad, and I told the story here. It was a guy out of the pipe fitters union up in the Pocono area by the name of John. He was the shop steward. Long since retired and moved away. Well, Jim, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing... You should be arguing on our behalf. I said, first of all, I'm not here to argue on your behalf and support a less safe working environment. Not going to happen. He wanted me gone, right? So he was trying to encourage me to go and fight management. I said, John, you obviously have this all figured out. I tell you what, why don't you and I go up in front of so-and-so and you can plead your case. And I tell you what, I'll be there to support you all the way. All of a sudden that's how I put down the heckler. And this is what has to happen here. Don't go sit behind a microphone and make comments. You're given a microphone, go out there and educate people. Be persuasive. Like Reed Buckley told me. It's one thing to make statements, it's another thing to be persuasive. Be persuasive. Get people on your side. And that's exactly what gets lost here with when they try to mock people like The Rock. Well, get involved with politics. There's a huge cost for this. You're dealing with somebody who made it real big and is really successful, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, who at the last WrestleMania, his daughters hated him for the way he was acting because again, it's entertainment, and fans were all PO'd at him and everything. Well, we didn't know you were that way, blah blah blah. And so, too much money to be lost. Number one, personally. Number two, what's your point? Your point has got to be to inspire people, to help educate people, help train people, be supportive, be an all-around good guy, be a leader, and everything else that goes in there. That's how you affect change, not by sitting behind a keyboard and always criticizing people. And if we do that, follow the example of people like who I talked about today, my brother John, where he was all about going and uniting people, being a uniter, not a divider. Try to find common ground with people. Try to get along with people. We try a little bit more of that and less of this at each other's throats all the time, we're going to be guaranteed to survive another 250 years and be one of the most, if not the most, prosperous society in the world history. greater than the Roman Empire, greater than the Greeks, greater than the Mensa Musa in Africa, and the Chinese dynasties. We have that potential. We have to get along. And we got to have backbone. That's my message. I didn't talk about any in the news, so we'll hopefully do that tomorrow. And I'm going to sign off on this. I hope to see you tomorrow. For Safety Wars and the Safety FM Network, this is Jim Posel.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.